Okay, good morning. I think this might actually be my last video. Kind of excited about that. So this is basically my last new topic that I am teaching, and it will be done through Edpuzzle. So multiple choice questions will pop up throughout the lesson, and you will answer them. Okay, so let's get started. Can we look at some data in two ways? So basically what we're doing is we're looking at something that's called a two-way frequency table. So let's take a look at the example. These are brand new to you. Miss Burgett took a survey of the number of boys and girls that regularly drink water, lemonade, or soda at lunch. So I'm looking at all my typos in here. This should say and. Okay, fill in the table. So this is really the most easiest way to fill in a table, is that I gave you pretty much most of the data and you just need to find the totals. I'm most often not going to do it this way, but since this is the first time we're doing this, I'm going to make it nice and simple for you. So I'm just going to add, going across, I'm going to add all the boys and girls that like water, and I'm going to get 78. You can use your calculator. 50 plus 38, I get 88. 42 plus 32, I get 74. And then I can add going the other way. And I'm going to add going down. 46, 50, 42, I get 138. 32, 38, and 32, I get 102. And then if I added going either way, going across this way or going down, I would still get the same answer. And in this case, I get 240 total people or so. Okay, so now that we have that information, we're going to use that information to answer questions on this table. So it says fill in the table. We did that. Round all answers to the nearest tens place. So that's only if it's necessary will we do that, but I think it's going to be necessary for many of these things. All right, it says what percent of the students regularly drink water? So we're basically asking you, out of all the students that Miss Burgett surveyed, we want to know what is the percent that drink water. Okay, so let's just remind ourselves, I'll do it down here, that percent is always part over whole. And then you're going to find whatever that is, and you're going to times it by 100, and that's going to give you the percent, and you're going to round to the nearest tenths place. And this information down below here is going to help you basically for every single question that you're going to be answering today. All right, so let's take a look again. What percent of the students regularly drink water? So how many students did Miss Burgett survey? She's totally surveyed 240 students. How many of them regularly drink water? Well, that's over here. So out of all of those, we got 78 out of 240. So you're going to use your calculator. You're going to divide 78 by 240, and then you're going to times it by 100, and you're going to round if necessary. I don't need to round. I get 32.5%. Okay, what percent of the students regularly drink lemonade? Okay, so you're going to take a moment and you're going to figure this out yourself. So again, it says what percent of the students drink lemonade. So again, the denominator this time is 240. We're going to look to see how many of them drink lemonade. That's 74. I'm going to divide 74 divided by 240 on my calculator, and I get 0.308333333. I'm going to times it by 100, and I got 30.83 repeating. And again, I'm rounding, so I'm going to write 30.8%. Hopefully you got the same answer as me. Okay, what percent of the girls regularly drink soda? So this time I am not going to be calculating out of 240. This time I'm going to worry about how many people are girls. So I'm going to look this way, and I'm going to look down here. These are all the girls, 32, 38, 32. There's actually 102 girls is my whole this time. What percent of the girls regularly drink soda? Well, how many girls drink soda? I'm going to look specifically at that amount, which I'm looking right here, and it says 38 out of 102. So I'm going to divide 38 by 102, and I'm going to times it by 100, and then I'm going to round. So currently on my screen, I have 37.25490196. If I round to the nearest tens place, I get 37.3%. And that was a little trickier, okay? Remember, be careful with the denominator. Always ask yourself, what are you being asked? Okay, that's important for you to think about for letter E, and I'm going to ask you to try that one on your own. What percent of the boys regularly drink water? So first we have to ask ourselves, how many boys are there? Well, there are 138 boys, so hopefully you use that as your denominator. And I want to know what percent of them drink water, so I'm going to look for the water, and I have 46 over 138. And if I do that correctly, I get 33.3 with a bar, but I'm just going to round, and it's 33.3% is the correct answer. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. Slightly harder than the first one. Okay, 8th grade students were asked whether they participate in after-school activities. Complete the two-way frequency table below. Okay, so if you take a look here, this time we have to do a little calculating of what things are going to be in the table. And in order for me to do that, I'm going to have to kind of like play around here a little bit. And there's lots of ways that you can do this. I'll let you figure out which way you like best to do, but I'm going to start here. So I know that the whole grand total is 187. And I can either fill in this blank here, which I certainly could, or this blank here. I'm going to start on the top because I'm going to use my calculator and I'm going to plug in 187 and I'm going to subtract 95. And that should hopefully get me 92, which is the amount that goes here. Okay, then I could work my way backwards from here. So I'm going to go, okay, 40 plus something equals 92. So I could go 92 minus 40, and I would say 52. And then 52 plus what is going to give me 102. I'm going to say 50. I'm going to go across now. 50 plus what gives me 95. That's 45. 40 plus 45 should give me 85. And again, if I took 187 and I subtracted 102, I would still get my 85. So however way you do this, I just need you to correctly fill in this table. Okay, once we have the table filled in, then we can start answering the questions. And again, it's super important for you to remember it's part over whole, and it's going to be times 100. And it says that we're going to round to the nearest tens place again. But it's really important that you remember which denominator you're being asked. It's going to change depending upon the question. So it's super important that you be really careful with the wording. So not only do you have to understand English here, you have to understand math. So it's the English component that I think messes some of you up. All right, let's take a look at the first part. The first part says, what percent of the students participating in an after-school activity? What percent of the students participate in an after-school activity? So I have to read that correctly. So first of all, I have to ask myself, well, how many students am I serving? I'm serving 187 students. That's going to be my denominator. I'm asking you, what is the percent of them that are participating in a school activity? So I'm going to ask myself, where should I be looking? Do I care about how many males and how many females there are? So I'm not going to worry about the 92 or the 95. I'm worrying about the yes and the no column. I want to worry about the yes column. Those are the people that participate. That's 102. So on my calculator, I'm going to do 102 divided by 187. And I'm going to times it by 100, and I'm going to round to the nearest tenth place. So right now on my screen, I have 54.545454 repeating, and I'm going to round, and I'm going to get 54.4 0.5%. Okay, so let's take a look at the next question. I'm going to ask you to try this on your own. What percent of the students that answer the survey are male? What percent of the students are male? So once again, you got to ask yourself, who's your denominator going to be? Hopefully you wrote down 187. And we are going to figure out how many of them are male. So I'm going to go on my male row, and I have 52 who said yes and 40 who said no, and total there are 92 males. So 92 is my part, and I'm going to do 92 divided by 187, and I'm going to times it by 100, and then I'm going to round to the nearest tens place. So currently on my screen, I have 49.19786.096, and if I rounded that to the nearest tens place, you should have gotten 49.2%. Okay, let's take a look at C. Here's where these get a little bit harder. Okay, what percent of the students who are male and do not participate in an after-school activity? Okay, so let's think about this carefully. What percent of the students who are male? So we're going to look at the students who are male. So how many students are male? 92 is my denominator. And do not participate in an after-school activity. Okay, those people that said no that were male were 40. So 40 out of 92. And then I'm going to times it by 100, and I'm going to round to the nearest tens place. So I get 43, and then if I round it correctly, I have to bump up that 4. It's going to be 0.5% because it says 43.47826087 on my screen, and I bumped it up. Okay, so that was a little tricky. I had to only look at the students that were male and then say how many of them did not participate in an activity. All right, let's take a look at D. Also challenging. Okay, what percent of the students who participate in an after-school activity, what percent of the students who participate in an after-school activity are female? So let's talk about the people who participate in an after-school activity. Those are all the yeses. How many people total say yes? Hopefully you're saying 102. That's going to be my whole. Who's going to be my part? It's going to be the number of females of those that said yes. So that's 50 out of 102. So we're going to use our calculator. This is already close to 1%, but it's not exact. And if I divide them and times it by 100, now you have to be careful with this one because it currently says 49.01960.784. Does everybody see that? So who's in the tens place is a 0, and to the right of it is a 1. The 1 tells me to leave it alone, but I need to write something in the tens place, so I have to put a 0 in there just to show that it's not exactly 49%. It's 49.0 when I'm rounding it. If you don't have the 0 there, you will be marked wrong. Okay? All right, so hopefully example 1 was okay. Again, it was a little harder. Example 2 is going to be even harder than that. So if you take a look at this one, so first I have to edit this for a minute because it's missing some information. So I'm going to put here, this is going to be on your notes already, and here. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to fill this out. Okay, now that that's on there, we're going to use information here. So this is basically a 4x4. The other ones were 3x3. These are 4x4 frequency tables. It's still two ways, down and across, but it's a little more complicated. So let's read what it's about. A public opinion poll was taken to explore the relationship between age and support for a candidate in an election. Complete the two-way frequency table below. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to figure out how many people over 60 were for the candidate. How many people over 60 were for the candidate? I'm going to let you take a moment and figure that out. So hopefully you took 35 and 15, that's here and here, and you added them. That would give me 50. And you subtracted 75, the total, minus 50, to get you 25. So that's the number that you hopefully got yourself. Okay, now that I have that number, now I could work up and down for the people that were for. If the total is 75 and I have 25 and 30, so here I am again, I'm going to do some adding. You can do it in your head too. 25 and 30 gives me 55, and then 75 minus 55 gives me 20. So you have to play a little bit here to figure out some of the missing numbers. Okay, so let's see what else I could do here. Is there anything else that I need to give you? I feel like I needed to give you this, so I'm going to have to do that now. I'm going to put 40 here. Okay, so let's see what we could do now. Let's go across here. So I can add 20, 40, and 15, and that's going to give me 60, 75 again. So this is going to be 75. Oop, trying to get the green here to work. 75. Okay, I can add going down. 75 is 150 plus 50 is 200 is my total here. Let's see what else we got going on here. Okay, let's add going this way. So I have 8, 15, 15 is 38. Add going this way, 75 and 38 gives me 113. And if I subtract 113 from 200, I get 87. If I add 40 and 35, that's 75. If I subtract it from 87, I get 12. And I could check going across. 50 minus 30 and 8 is 38, and 50 minus 38 is 12. Okay, so the 8 and the 40 and the 75 and the 75 all need to be given to you. So I have to edit that before I print it. All right, so let's round all our answers to the nearest tens place if necessary. All right, so let's try these. I'm going to do A. What percent of the people surveyed had no opinion? So let's talk about how people were surveyed. Here's that big number down here. That's 200 where people were surveyed. And the question is, how many people had no opinion? So I'm going to look down, and all my no opinions, I got 38 out of 200. Okay, so let's see. If I do 38 out of 200 and I times it by 100, I don't have to do any rounding. I get exactly 19%. Okay, you're going to take a moment to answer part B. What percent of the people surveyed were over 60. Okay, so what percent of the people? Again, we're talking about 200 over 60. In that specific case, we are looking at all the over 60s. And if I go across, all the over 60s was 75 people were over 60. And if I do 75 divided by 200, I get 37.5%. Okay, so let's take a look at letter C. What percent of the 21 to 40 age group was for the candidate? So let's think about this. Our denominator is definitely not going to be 200 now because we're not talking about everybody. We're talking about only the 21 to 40 age group. So if I look at the 21 to 40 age group, I'm looking to see, and I'm looking across this way now. So you can either look across or down. That's why I call them two ways. To look across 21 to 40, the total number of people there is 50. And I'm specifically looking for the people that were for the candidate. And in this case, 30 of them were for the candidate. And if I do 30 divided by 50 and I times it by 100, I don't have to do any rounding, I get exactly 60%. Please try question D without me. What percent of the people against the candidate were 41 to 60? Okay, if I'm going to look at my denominator here, I'm looking at the people that were against the candidate. So let's talk about who's against it. I'm going to look going down this way. The number of people that were against it were 87 people. Specifically, though, I'm looking for the 41 to 60, and that's 40 out of 87. So I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to divide 40 by 87. I'm going to times it by 100. And then I'm at 45.97701,149. And if I look in the tens place, I'm at a 9, but I look to the right. So it looks like this. So I look at the 9, look to the right. It means I'm going to round up, but I have to write something there. So if I round this up, it becomes a 0, and this becomes a 46. So I'm going to write 46.0%. Again, I must write the 0 in there. Otherwise, it's you might think that it's exactly that number, and it isn't. Okay, be careful. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so I'm at MC Hammer now. I'm kind of done with all of my examples here. This one's a little different, but I'm going to go through it with you, and then I have one more multiple choice question for you to think about when I do the sum it up. And then I'll go through all of that for you to finish the video, and then you can move on to your homework assignment, which should be nice and short. Okay, so let's take a look. It says, a statistics class surveyed some students during one lunch period to obtain opinions about television programming preferences. The results of the survey are summarized in the table below. Okay, so it says, based on the random sample, about how many, so the question says about how many of the school's 451 females prefer drama. All right, so let's talk about this. There's no totals here at all whatsoever, so I'm going to do a couple of total. I'm really just worrying about the females, so I'm going to add up 48 and 42, and together I get 90 females. Hopefully you know that. Okay, so let's do my work down below. So of the 90 females, how many of them preferred drama? 42 out of 90. Okay, so I could convert that into a percent and then take that percent and multiply it by 451. Or, and that's one way, I'll show that way in a minute, or I could just use the proportion. 42 out of 90 equals, and I'm going to do x over 451. This is not totaling 451, no matter how you shake it up here on the top here, these four numbers. There is no, this is just, you're asking, this is a random sample, and you're using that random sample to make a prediction. You used to do that in 7th grade, you made predictions for using probability. So I'm going to do my cross products here. And I'm going to get 90x equals, and I think I get 18,942 when I multiply them. I'm going to divide by 90. And I am not rounding up because it was 210.4. So I get 210. So if I did this with just using the percent the other way, I would do 42 divided by 90. And I would get 46.6 with a bar percent. And I just take that number and I times it by 451. And I would get the same answer of 210.46666 repeating. So it's about 210. So there's two different ways that I can do it. One, I'm just going to set up a proportion, but you could convert 42 out of 90 to a percent and then take this number and times it by 451. However way you do it, you still get the 210.46 repeating. And that's not going to round up. That's actually going to round down. All right, let's take a look at the next example. Sum it up. A survey was done to determine the relationship between gender and subject preferences. A total of 56 students were surveyed to determine if they liked math, English, social studies, or science as their favorite subject. The results were then broken down based on whether the respondent was male or female. So the entire frequency table is filled in for you. So let's see if you can answer this next question without me. What percent of female students liked English as their favorite subject? So what percent of female students, so that's important because that's going to be my whole. So I have to figure out how many female students there are. So I'm going to add going across with all my females, and there's a 30 as the denominator. So I have 30 as my denominator, and the question says, what's the percent that like English? So I have 6 people like English. If I use my calculator and convert that, you should get 0.2, or you should have gotten 20%. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. So these are super important that you read them carefully. A person looking at this table concludes that it is more likely that a female student will like social studies than a male student will like math. Is this correct? Justify your answer. So let's think about that for a minute. Let's break this down slowly. So first they're asking about a female student who will like social studies. Okay? So more likely that a female student will like social studies. So let's try that. How many female students like social studies? So let's take a look at all of the females, and there are a total of 30 females. And we want to know how many of them like social studies, and that is 11. The next question says that a male student will like math. So let's talk about how many male students there are. So there are 26 male students, and of those 26, 10 of them like math. Okay, so we're basically asking to compare these. So I'm going to do cross products going across. So 30 times 10, I get 300. 26 times 11, I'm going to use my calculator, and I get 286. So I get this guy is greater. So I think it is more likely. So a person looking at this table, it's more likely that a female student will like social studies than a male student will like math. I'm going to say no. And here is my justification. Okay. 10 out of 26 is going to like math. Of the students that like math will be male. And here it's 11 out of 30 for the female students that like social studies. Again, order is important. All right, how about the next one? Is it more likely that a person who likes social studies will be female? So let's talk about this. Person that likes social studies, so let's start with the like social studies section down here. That's 19, is female. That's 11. Then a person who is female will like social studies. The number of people that are female are 30, and the number of people that like social studies are 11. And again, let's do my cross product. So 30 times 11, I get 330. 19 times 11, so we're going like this across. 19 times 11, I get 198. So I got this way this time. So this time, it is more likely that a person who likes social studies, I'm going with the first one. And there's my justification by showing the math that goes along with it. Okay, so hopefully you understand that. We're going to pause the video here or stop the video here, and you're going to work on your homework assignment, which is really essentially one two-way frequency table and some follow-up questions for you to answer. Okay? Have a great day.